I'll never call off. Fourth quarter pressure. Back of the jersey. Double sevens. No matter how many times, I never get tired of that reference. Hall of Fame for dirt. We love you with a deep reverence.
Hi, this is Luka Doncic.
Hi, I'm Kyrie Irving.
And you're listening to the Mavs Step Back Podcast.
They waiting on my fall off. I'll never call off. Fourth quarter pressure. Back of the jersey. Double sevens. No matter how many times, I never get tired of that reference. Hall of Fame for dirt. We love you with a deep reverence. Backcourt nasty. I wonder who gon' check him. Cuban did his thing when he went and got number 11. I still got his picture on my wall at 707. Feel synonymous with Kyrie, how we both train with aggression. Competition obsolete. Trying to breathe life into my dreams. I'm so tired of sleep. Still got some work from last season that was incomplete. So hungry for redemption. Thank my boys, just might overeat. Like Luka with his three of them hit, my mic is prone to overheat. I pride myself the most. I'm 22 and my folks proud of me. I took the hard away since I was 10. Was no surprise to me. A step back, Mavs blowing up was no surprise to me. And I'm speaking honestly. 7.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew Johnson. You can find both of our written work, at dallasbasketball.com. You can find us on social media. If you want to follow along with us on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, you can find me at Dalton_Trigg. You can find DJ at Coach Drew33. Woo, man! The NBA Finals. It's the eve of game one, and it has been a long wait, DJ. Too long. It's been way too long. Like this, it's kind of unreal how long it's been. And given the NBA didn't anticipate both conference finals, going less than 5 games. A maximum of 5 games. So Mavs beat the Timberwolves in 5. The Celtics swept the Pacers. So it created a situation where both teams had at least a full week off, but now it's here. It's Wednesday night going into Thursday, TD Garden, Boston, game 1. It's going to be crazy. I'm not out there yet, but I'm flying out there Saturday for game 2. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. But yeah, this is crazy. This is what we've been waiting for. This is what we hoped for heading into the postseason. And the Mavs have, despite Luka's knee sprain situation and, some other things that went wrong in the first and second round, they fought through everything, and they find themselves in a great position now. Not only are they in the NBA Finals with a team that's fully capable of winning a championship, but they also have their guys completely healthy. And without missing, a lot of time, because I know the Celtics are completely healthy too, but Kristaps Porzingis has been out since April 29th, I think. So even though he's expected to come back from game 1, there's going to be some rust there. But we'll get to the Celtics in a little bit. DJ, what are you expecting from the Mavs in game 1 in Boston?
I could see it going a couple of ways. I don't want anyone to take this negatively, but this is a really young team. And whenever you're a young team doing big new things for the first time, I mean, we've actually seen it with this group. It can be a negative at times. I hope that the moment doesn't become too big. And the beauty of having a 7-game series is you can allot for a game like that, especially an away game. You can allot for a game like that. And I mean, honestly, for all but the last series, it was always game 1. Yep. I could see that scenario happening, and I hope that's not the scenario that happens. But just because of our youth, I could see it going that way. The scenario that I want to happen, that is very possible given who we are dealing with, is Kyrie Irving is going to drop 40-plus points. Because Dalton, he's been frighteningly quiet. Like whenever they ask him about it, he doesn't have anything bad to say. It's just all business. And to me, that's absolutely terrifying if you're the Boston Celtics. Like that's like shivers down your spine. And I could see Kyrie coming in and basically just proclaiming himself the number one option, at least for that night, because there's some bad blood there. And that's how I hope it goes. And Luka could always drop 70. So I mean, but I would really like to see Kyrie Irving, get his lick in early, and I'd really like to see us get our lick in early.
I could definitely see that happen. And another little wrinkle that I want to throw into this. I'd have to look up the exact number, but I'm pretty sure this is right. I think Kyrie Irving is like 0-10 against the Celtics since the stomping on Lucky at midcourt or whatever. I'm pretty sure if it's not exactly 0, it's something like that. He hasn't beaten the Celtics for a very long time. And like we saw in that Minnesota Timberwolves Western Conference Finals, all streaks come to an end at some point. Kyrie Irving was 14-0 in closeout games, an NBA record, 14-0 in closeout games, and then he lost one against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So anything can happen, and I just feel like, I don't know how the rest of the series will go, but I just feel like the Mavs will be ready for this moment. I feel like they're going to come out, and Kyrie, I don't think we're going to have to worry about him getting off to his routine slow starts and then finishing it off in the second half. I think he's going to come out ultra aggressive because this is it. This is the final stop. This is where you go out there, you get 4 wins, and you're done. You hold up that Larry O'Brien trophy. He's won his second championship. Luka's won his first. Everybody celebrates. This is where you put it all on the line. And he has, and we said it before, you don't need extra motivation when you're playing in the NBA Finals. But the fact of the matter is he has it. He has that extra motivation. Luka is going to have that extra motivation. Even if he is not targeted personally by the hostile Boston crowd, he's going to find a way to take it personally and make it about him. They're being assholes to my great teammate Kyrie over here. I'm going to make them pay.
Yep.
Stuff like that. So I'm excited. Now the only thing I am slightly concerned about going in this game, I think Luka and Kyrie are going to be amazing, but I do wonder, as good as Derek Lively has been, is he going to have, how much are the jitters going to get to the younger guys like that?
Yep.
PJ Washington, who has been nails this entire postseason, and he's hit several huge shots. Like, up to this point, the nerves haven't really gotten to PJ. So will that continue on the biggest stage? Because, this is a little bit different than the previous 3 rounds. So that's what I'll be looking at. Like Gafford, Washington, Lively, Josh Green, who I think can sneakily be a key factor in this series.
Absolutely.
Jaden Hardy, who's been great making the most of his limited opportunities. I want to see how those guys, respond to being in this situation for the first time ever. Because I have even though it's Luka's first time in the finals, he just has that in him to be great when all the chips are sitting on the table. So I'm not worried.
He's been winning pro championships since what? Didn't he win it all whenever he was like 17 years old in EuroLeague?
Literally a few days before the NBA draft, he helped Real Madrid win the EuroLeague championship, and then he flew to the U.S. and got drafted by the Mavs. He was great. I mean, he hit some huge shots. I mean, he's just got it. He's got it in his blood. This is what he lives for, and I'm excited for it. Again, though, I just want to see specifically how those younger guys especially the ones that haven't been in this situation before, which is pretty much everybody except Kyrie. I want to see how they respond, to the early jitters. If they get hit in the mouth early, how do they respond throughout the course of the game as it progresses? Because we talked about it in the Western Conference Finals, and I kind of joked, and I was like, if the Mavs finally break the curse and win a game one, they might just be world beaters from now on, and just never lose another one again. So I want to see if Jason Kidd can go, on a two game one win streak and start this NBA Finals off right and steal home court right off the bat. But aside from Luka and Kyrie, what are you expecting from the younger guys? I mean, how do you expect Lively to do? Let's start with Lively first, because with KP back, and I don't know how many minutes he's going to play because he's been out for over a month, that means Al Horford is being moved to the bench. And Al Horford is older. He's almost 40 years old. He's still very good, but he's not as mobile as he used to be. And, he's very strong too, though. And I'm anxious, or I'm eager, I guess is the better word, to see how Lively does against the grizzled veteran and Al Horford, coming off the bench. What are you looking for in that matchup specifically?
Well, honestly, I mean, has there really been a game that Lively has not played well in the playoffs?
That's a good point.
I mean, there's a reason why he has the plus minus that he has. And he didn't miss a single field goal attempt in the entire Western Conference Finals. This is not normal rookie behavior. So I'm going to go ahead and give Lively the benefit of the doubt, especially considering that his matchup is Al Horford. And not to disrespect Big Al. Big Al's been a great player in this league. But Big Al's wheels have a couple holes in them now. He's not
Lively posterized Rudy Gobert. So,
yeah,
I mean,
exactly. And that kind of brings me into another point. There is no way, if we can run the pick and roll effectively and often, we just need to go middle of the floor, pick and roll, let's go. Because if we go in the middle of the floor, they can't double team you off of it. So go middle of the floor, pick and roll, we will be absolutely unstoppable. Because if the best defensive team in the league couldn't handle it, and they could not figure it out, there's no way the Celtics are going to be able to handle it. Number one, let's go ahead with Kristaps Porzingis first of all. I like to think that at this stage in the game, both Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns, and for sure Naz Reid, are all more mobile than he is at this point post-injuries. And we haven't even seen what he looks like after this calf strain, which, by the way, folks, is a very serious injury and can lead to other injuries. It's what Kevin Durant sustained right before he tore his Achilles. That's a huge cause for concern if you're a Boston guy. And then whenever you bring Al Horford off the bench, who is perhaps even less mobile, I don't like the odds for that if I'm a Boston guy, because the issue is they're not going to be able to stop us in the pick and roll, and we can literally go to that over and over and over again. And it's not like we're afraid to do it. We've seen them do that. That's what they ended up doing against Minnesota, and I would really like to see what their field goal percentage is in pick and rolls. I haven't been able to figure out where I can find that information, but just in that series alone, we had to score, oh my gosh, at the least 65%. I would give it at the least 65% because I have a tendency to over-exaggerate. So on my low end, I would give it 65%. And I could see it being as high as 70% because we also have the most lobs in NBA history or something, and it's by an astronomical amount.
Oh, it's not even close. The amount of oops that that the Mavs have completed during this postseason compared to everybody else, it's really insane.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think this is going to be a big test for Lively. It's going to be a big test for Gafford. But, I mentioned this on one of the previous pods. I've seen how Gafford plays against KP. Now, look, I get it. KP has been better in Boston than he was in Dallas because, one, for the most part, he stayed healthier than what he did in Dallas. That's the first thing. And the second thing is he's been more accepting of his secondary or third, whatever you want to call it. He's been accepting of his role behind two other star players.
Mm-hmm.
And he's okay, not getting all his post-up touches and, superstar-like field goal attempts and stuff like that. So you got to tip your hat to KP in that regard. But the fact remains he's not as good of he's a great shot blocker when he's in position, but guarding in space is not what it used to be for KP, and especially coming off a month-plus absence, and you haven't played, even if he's healthy, even if the knee has healed completely, the calf has healed completely, he still hasn't played an real NBA game in over a month.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I have seen how KP plays versus Gafford in the past. And I think Gafford is going to be able to just outmatch him, at least at the start of this series. And then Lively coming off the bench, it is a concern, if they end up leaving Horford open on corner threes, because corner threes for Horford are automatic pretty much.
Yeah.
So you can't give up that. But, overall, I'm pretty optimistic about how these guys will, come out and respond to the brightest lights, This is as bright as they'll ever get. And part of the reason why I'm so confident in these guys, coming out of the gate strong is because I think Kyrie Irving has kind of instilled that mindset into everybody. He's been there before. He's letting everybody know, look, it's okay to fail. If you fail one time, just learn from it, come back the next time. It's not going to be a perfect journey, but, stay with it. Everybody stay together as a family as they have throughout this entire postseason, and they should be fine. So I'm very excited about it. Like I said, Luka and Kyrie, they're going to do their thing, but it's the other guys, it's the complimentary guys around them that I think, it'll be interesting to see how they respond to the big bright lights in Boston. So next point I wanted to talk about. So we know what Luka and Kyrie are going to do. We think we know what Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to do. My thing is, though, if one of those two guys for Boston decides to not play well, because Jason Tatum hasn't shot the three ball well during this entire postseason.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown has been amazing. Even if roles reverse in these finals, I feel like the Celtics are going to need both of those guys to really perform at the highest of levels to keep up with Luka and Kyrie. And I know everybody there's several people predicting Boston to win. They're obviously the favorites to win in Vegas. I just don't know, man. I top to bottom, I know how talented the Celtics are. I'm not trying to discount what they did winning 64 games in the regular season. But, man, I saw Luka take down the 64-win Phoenix Suns in 2022 when Dwight Powell was starting at center. So, and that Phoenix Suns 64-win season was more impressive because it was in the West.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is going to make this, explicit or whatever. So, sorry, guys. Records don't mean shit in the postseason. They don't. Everybody is 0-0, okay? Yeah. And honestly, the Celtics have had an absolute cakewalk going through the playoffs. Not only is the East overall weaker than the West, but you throw in all the injuries that all these teams have had, they couldn't have asked for a better situation. They haven't been tested.
Well, look, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, that they're going to have to work as hard as they have worked all postseason. Against the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler wasn't playing in that series. Against the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell missed significant time in that series. Against the Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton missed significant time. So they've been very lucky and you got to play the teams that are in front of you no matter what, and they've taken care of business. So you have to give them credit there. But the fact of the matter is, they haven't been tested as much as the Mavs have been tested. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are not that, they haven't been defended the same way Luka and Kyrie were defended in that OKC series, or, in that Minnesota. I know the Mavs won in 5 against Minnesota, but that was a very physical series. And,
it's close. All
we
those games were close, except the last one.
And we saw how great Anthony Edwards was in that 7-game series, knocking out the defending champion Denver Nuggets. And then next thing you know, he's chasing around Luka and Kyrie for a full series, and he was having to, suck oxygen down from a tank in the tunnel. So, it's a little bit different now, because not only does Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have to be great on offense, but they're going to have to be great on defense too. And I don't know if they're going to – this Mavs team is built to wear you down. Yep. Even if you don't take a commanding lead from the start of the series, that's the formula for this team. They grind you out. And over the course of a series, they're banking on you being so worn out that you're not going to be making some of the shots that you normally make. Yep. And that's going to – hopefully be the case in this series, because look, people will say, oh, well, Luka and Kyrie, they can't guard Brown and Tatum. That's not how this is going to work. Like, even maybe on switches, they'll catch those matchups every now and then, but this is going to be about PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. and Josh Green. Yep. And, all maybe Dante Exum thrown in there every now and then. This is going to be about those guys and their length and their grit, just wearing down Boston's 2 stars. And I think it's going to turn out a lot better for the Mavs than what most people think. I feel like a lot of people are overlooking just how good the Mavs are just because they're a number 5 seed. This is not a number 5 seed, guys. This is a team that has been right there with Boston as the best team in the league since March, and they're playing their best basketball right now. The Celtics aren't. Even though the Celtics they're 12-2 in the postseason, I get that. They've won 12 games. They've only lost 2 games. They're not playing their best basketball, and the Mavs have. They're playing their best at the right time. So that's my rant. I think Boston's duo is going to have a lot harder time over the course of this series than most people realize. And look, I'm looking at Jaylen Brown's numbers from the 2022 NBA Finals against the Warriors, an older Warriors team at that. They weren't what they were in years past, but they were still very good. And, he averaged 23 points, shot 43% from the field, and 34% from 3. He didn't really show up the way they wanted him to. And I wonder if his efficiency is going to drop in this series too. Because, Jaylen Brown scares me, but Jaylen Brown hasn't had to play against this Mavs defense for several games in a row. It's just a different animal, in my opinion. I can't wait to see, how it goes. But, how do you envision the Mavs' defensive schemes around those 2 guys specifically, Brown and Tatum?
First of all, Jaylen Brown hasn't played against anyone in these playoffs that could actually guard him. Let's be real. Especially in the last series. Come on. I personally, and I don't know if this is going to happen, this is what I would do, but I don't get paid the big bucks, so, take it with a grain of salt. But I could see PJ Washington matched up on Jaylen Brown for 2 reasons. Number one, I think that's the matchup in which there is less of a size gap. Like, that's the least size gap matchup that we're going to have, because PJ Washington's 6'7". I think Jaylen Brown's about 6'7", whereas you have Tatum, who's 6'10". But also, Jaylen Brown's playing much better basketball right now than Jason Tatum. And you can't have both of those guys going nuts at the same time. If we can neutralize their most consistent threat and force Tatum to beat us, which I'm not sure that he even can, but if you can neutralize Brown somehow and force Tatum to beat you, I really like our odds, because like you said, Tatum struggles or has struggled mightily in this postseason with his 3-point shot. And lo and behold, it's what he settles for most often in offensive possessions. So he is literally shooting himself and his teammates in the foot with that. Now, when Tatum's aggressive, he can be scary. And I mean, what I mean by aggression is getting to the rim. Whenever he's doing that, he can be scary. But he settles so often, and he is so inefficient right now that I really think that our main focus defensively needs to be on trying to our best to shut down Jaylen Brown. Now, besides Jaylen Brown, let's see, Jason Tatum,
Derek White, he's really good.
yeah.
I mean, he's a very people tried to get him voted into the All-Star game this year. I always thought that was very forced, but you know, he's a very high-end role player. Like he's good. He's a smart player. He comes from San Antonio. He learned from Pop. You know, he's very smart. He's a very typical Spurs player that just changed.
He can shoot it.
Yeah.
He can shoot it, and he's a really good defender, but he's not going to beat us offensively. I mean, he is okay. There have been games where he has lit people up, but he is not my main concern.
Yeah. It's definitely Brown in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely Brown. For Tatum, I think you go Derrick Jones Jr. I know that that's a pretty significant size gap, but that's what you're going to be dealing with anyway. Maybe I might change my mind by the end of this. This is really kind of the first time I've put it all to pen and paper.
Yeah. Drew Holiday.
I think you go. I think you go Kyrie on Holiday because Holiday is mostly looks to penetrate, and I think that Kyrie is better equipped to keep up with him. I don't hate Luka on Derek White because Derek White is more perimeter oriented. I think that Luka is actually a much better shot contester than people give him credit for. So I think that you're going to put him in those closeout situations. And I don't think that Derek White is the athlete that Drew Holiday is. So in which case, if he did try to attack a closeout, I think that Luka would be more likely to be able to keep up with Derek White.
Yeah, I agree.
So
just with Brown and Tatum specifically, we know it's going to be Jones and Washington. Out of those two, who would you prefer guarding each Celtic star?
I want PJ Washington on Jaylen Brown because I think that's a better size matchup. There is nowhere near as much of a size gap, and I think you need to put your best defender in a situation where he can be the most effective. And I think that just in terms of size and length and mobility, he matches up better with Brown than he does Tatum. I think that if you matched him up on Tatum, I could see Tatum trying to foul bait him just because he would have to work that much harder because Tatum's a bigger guy. And I also like the idea of having our defensive stopper, our absolute best defender, on who we perceive to be the number one offensive threat.
Yeah.
So I think that lines up perfectly. I don't love the Derrick Jones Jr. Jason Tatum matchup. I think Jones has enough length to bother Tatum, like to get up there and contest. I just worry about if Tatum actually gets a head full of steam and decides to attack the rim. I worry about Jones's ability to keep him from penetrating. Like I worry about his strength in that department. I don't really worry about him being able to challenge him at the rim because Jones is an elite level athlete. I just worry about Tatum being able to make contact and draw fouls on a player who already is kind of foul prone.
Yeah.
So, but you live with it. And let's be real, these matchups, as tight as we want them to be, specifically PJ's and Jalen's, all this stuff's going to get screwed up whenever they start setting screens and forcing switches anyway.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of switches. Now, especially on the Celtics side, I think, because all their guys can pretty much defend. But if KP's on the court, the Mavs are gonna try their best to get that switch for Luka or Kyrie because you just have to. It's good strategy. The guy's having some issues with his calf. He's been out for over a month. He's going to be rusty. They're going to seek that matchup, and it'll be interesting to see how willing Boston will be, to give up that switch, or if they're going to be extra aggressive to fight over it and, try and avoid Luka and Kyrie getting that switch on KP. And if they do get ultra aggressive and try to fight over it, it's like we saw in that OKC series with Lou Dort trying to do the same thing. He got in foul trouble a lot, throughout that series. So it'll be interesting to see if the same dynamic, happens there with whoever is trying to guard on the pick and rolls with Luka and Kyrie.
Who do you think guards Luka, and who do you think guards Kyrie?
I think they're going to go with Jaylen Brown on Luka, honestly.
Ooh.
I feel like he's probably guarded Luka the best, maybe out of all of them. So that's what I think. I think they're going to go with Jaylen Brown guarding Luka right off the bat. And again, Jaylen Brown has not had to guard Luka for a full 7-game series before. This is a little bit different than regular season matchups. So, I think they might go to that first, and then if it's just tiring him out too much, they might try something else later down the line. They might switch between him and Tatum, or they might try, I feel like if they put Drew Holiday or Derek White on Luka, Luka's just gonna feast.
Kill him.
That's just they're too small. So that's where I stand on that. Those two guys are great defenders. Drew Holiday is one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA. He has been for a very long time. Derek White is excellent defensively, but they're too small. They can't do anything with Luka. No. Drew Holiday, and as far as Kyrie Irving goes, I do think Drew Holiday is going to end up drawing that defensive, assignment first, and we'll see how that progresses throughout the series. But it was funny in the NBA Finals media day stuff. They asked Drew Holiday about what needs to be done to slow down Kyrie Irving, and he just said pray. That was his answer to trying to prep for Kyrie Irving. Just you got to pray. So I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, look, that's kind of the defensive matchups I'm looking at as this series starts, and everything's fluid because both coaches are going to be making adjustments every step of the way. You have to. I mean, you can't sit on something for a full series like we saw Mark Dagnall do in that OKC series where he waited until game 5 before he decided not to start Josh Giddey. Yeah. And then he benched Josh Giddey, and then it didn't matter anyway. But, I expect there to be a lot of different shifts from both sides. And look, this NBA Finals, we're both on record. I think you picked Mavs in 6 in our DBCom round table that will be going up tomorrow morning. Spoiler alert, we both picked Mavs in 6, and my reasons for that are very simple. There's a lot of complexities that you can throw in here, but my reasoning is very simple. It comes down to 2 things. Which team has the best player in the series, and which team has the best coach in the series? And I think the Mavs have both in that category. They have Luka, who is the best player in this series, in my opinion. I really don't think it's a debate, but that's just my opinion. Mm-hmm. And then I think Jason Kidd is a better coach than Joe Mazzulla. That's my, especially this postseason run. Like Jay Kidd, he becomes a different animal coaching in the postseason from what we see in the regular season. This is 2 straight postseasons now. Yeah, that Jay Kidd has just dazzled. I mean, he's been amazing. He's won as many playoff series in 3 years as Rick Carlisle did in his entire 12-year stint in Dallas. He's 5-1 in playoff series. The only loss he had was against the Golden State Warriors, and it's because he had Dwight Powell starting as his center in that series. And Luka was just worn out by the time they got to that point. But kid has been amazing. He's coached his ass off this postseason, and I can't give him enough flowers for how he's done. And you've got that, and you've got Luka, and you've got Kyrie, and the extra motivation. And I don't know, man. I think the Mavs are gonna, end this series. I don't think it's gonna go a full 7. I think they're gonna end it in 6. And I said 6 just because I didn't want to. I didn't want people sounding the alarms on me or anything, but I kind of wanted to go in 5.
I wanted to go in 4, and I want them all to be blowouts. So we don't always get what we want. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm conservatively saying Mavs in 6 is what I'm doing, but I can see this being a situation where the Celtics don't really understand what they're in for a full series. Mm-hmm. I really don't, because I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm overestimating, or maybe I'm underestimating the Celtics and their dominance on both ends of the floor. But I don't know, man. The Mavs mopped the floor with the number 1 defense in the league. They mopped the floor with a team that was top 5 in offense and defense in the league in OKC. Played very physical in that series. And I don't know. I think the Mavs are just more battle-tested than the Celtics are, and I think they're going to shock them with their physicality and their relentlessness on a night-to-night basis in this series. I think it's going to be just an absolute shocker, especially for Boston fans. Some of the stuff I've heard, I listen to NBA Sirius XM radio, all these different talk shows, and fans from both sides calling in and giving their opinions and everything. And, obviously on the NBA Twitter, you have opinions flying around. And just from what I've seen, I really don't think Boston Celtics fans understand what this Mavs team has become. This is not the team that the Celtics beat 138 to 110 or whatever it was in that March game at TD Garden. It's a different team, different starting lineup, different rotations. Tim Hardaway Jr. isn't going to be coming out there playing 20 minutes like he did in that last game.
He better not.
The Mavs and Celtics played. Daniel Gafford only played 6 minutes because I think he had to leave with some kind of injury in that game and didn't return. So he only played 6 minutes in that last game the Mavs and Celtics played. So you can't look at that. And I feel like that's what all these Celtics fans are hinging everything on, instead of looking at how the teams are currently playing heading into this series. And here's one more thing that I'm excited about, DJ, and I want to get your thoughts on it. A very underrated part of these NBA finals is not just Luka being able to rest for a week before the final start, but Maxi Kleber getting to rest for a full week, because he came back from that shoulder sprain. Yeah, it was a sprain that he suffered in the first round against the Clippers. He didn't play the entire series against OKC, which is part of the reason why that series went as long as it did, in my opinion. He came back for the last 2 games against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then, surprise, surprise, DJ, in that last game, because the first game Kleber came back, Lively wasn't playing because he had the neck injury. And then he came back in game 5, and Kleber and Maxey were playing. And lo and behold, guess what happened? It was a blowout. And DJ, I am very interested in seeing how these matchups or these lineups, are effective throughout the series, because we talked about it in the first round. When Lively and Kleber are on the floor together, good things happen. Well, look, this 5-man lineup of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Derek Jones Jr., Maxi Kleber, and Derek Lively. It's only a 17-minute sample size. It's only happened in 5 games this postseason for a total of 17 minutes. They have an offensive rating of 120.6, a defensive rating of 70.3. So that's a net rating of 50.3 in a 17-minute sample size. And we saw it in the Clippers series too. That it was a very limited sample size, but that same lineup just destroyed the Clippers. And we didn't get to see it in the second round against OKC because Cleveland was hurt. Didn't get to see it in the Western Conference Finals until that final game, where the Mavs blew the Timberwolves out 124-103 to close out the series. I am very interested. That's the lineup that I'm circling heading into the finals. I want to see if that lineup can continue to do that much work in a limited amount of time, because those are insane numbers. And I'm very excited, about having Kleba back to maybe not 100%, but pretty close to it after having a full week off.
Well, I think if you're Jason Kidd, that's your first substitution. If we know these
Lively too.
Yeah. Well, if we know these things, well, whenever I say substitution, I mean like substitution pattern, like
yeah.
We're putting all those people in at the same time. Because I mean, if he knows about this, like if we know about this, he's got to know about this. Okay, he has to. So I really wouldn't understand why you wouldn't if you have this knowledge. Honestly, I'm of the assumption that the more you play Derek Lively, the better you are, just in general. I'm really excited for Kleba's return, but Lively has won us some games, dude. Straight up won us some games on both ends of the floor. And I think that his presence, just individually, it was the most meaningful it has ever been in that blowout win against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think that that's the way it's going to be moving forward. I think, to kind of build off your statement of whenever you play those two together, good things happen, yes. But I think that great things happen if you just play Derek Lively alone. Just do that. I think the more minutes he has, the better we'll be.
Yeah, individually for Lively in this postseason. So in 16 games, averaging 21.7 minutes off the bench. And again, just 16 playoff games. Individual offensive rating of 118.1 and 104.7 on the defensive rating. So he has a 13.4 net rating in 21.7 minutes coming off the bench, a rookie big man, 20 years old. That is some unprecedented shit right there.
Insane. And like, dude, a lot of the stuff, like a lot of what you're seeing, like it's not even quantified in statistics. Like if you just watch the games, and he like literally he supercharges his whole team with his energy.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet the other day. I don't remember who said it, but they said that Derek Lively's energy needs to be studied. And it showed like a couple of clips of like him just checking in, and then the ensuing play, it's like a switch was flipped throughout the whole lineup out there. It was absolutely insane. He's like a lightning rod. And it's scary to think that he's just a rookie and he's only going to get better.
Yeah, I've been thoroughly impressed with him. Everybody knows by now because we've talked about it, but he has the second largest plus-minus rating in NBA history for a rookie in the postseason, behind Manu Ginobili, who the Spurs won the title that year, I believe, when Manu was a rookie, and so that we'll see where Derek Lively's plus-minus ends up, at the end of these finals. But if it keeps trending the way it has been, he could potentially catch Manu. I think there'd have to be a couple of blowouts thrown in there for him to get there. But I've learned not to doubt Luka.
Yeah.
If look, the Mavs are capable of winning games even if Luka just has a regular 25 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, something like. Mavs are capable of
average game.
Just your average Luka game like that.
Average triple-double.
Yeah. And it's crazy that's how this is really – that's what this has turned into. It's like Luka puts up numbers like that, and it's like, well, he could have done better.
Yeah.
But if Luka comes out on a heater like he did in Game 5 in Minnesota, like that's when it's over. And I just think he's built for the moment. I think Kyrie is built for the moment. We've seen it on the biggest stage in the biggest game, a game 7 against the dynasty Golden State Warriors at their peak. Well, maybe not at their peak because they didn't have Kevin Durant, but they were at their peak for that team.
Yeah.
Hitting the game-winning 3 over Steph Curry, that's crazy. And, he has it in him to do stuff like that. And I think, he's hungry for, it's been 7 years, I believe, since the last time he was in the NBA Finals. And it's his 4th appearance. And, he's only won 1, and he's lost 2 so far. So he's trying to even the score, get his 2nd ring. Luka trying to get his 1st. And, all the other guys, I think they fall into place and they don't play with as much pressure on them because of the pressure that Luka and Kyrie carry on their shoulders. So I'm just excited, man. I think this is going to be a great series. And again, I've made some pretty bold statements over the last few weeks, especially with KP. I made the point that, I kind of wanted KP to come back for this series at the beginning because DJ, I've seen how he moves I've seen his lateral movement.
Yep.
And I've seen how he's played against Gafford in the past, and Gafford is going to he's more athletic at this point. He's stronger at this point, in my opinion. I just think he's going to dominate, and I might be wrong about that. But, I have full faith in both Gafford and Lively to continue to do what they've done this entire postseason because, quite frankly, they've given us no reason not to believe that they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. You had 2 key things. I've got 3. And I'll be very brief with them. I'm not going to draw out about them. Who am I kidding? I probably will. But
that's what we're here for. It's okay.
Yeah, so, first one, and I think this one is the most obvious. We got to run them off the 3-point line. They're all going to be able to shoot the ball 1 through 5, no matter really what lineup they throw out there. Some lineups are better than others, but basically they can all shoot the ball. They can all stretch the floor. And that's actually what they prefer to do. That is the shots that they want. They hunt those perimeter opportunities. So we have to run them off the 3-point line. I want to say in the regular season, they made around 17 a game, and they shot around 40% on the year, which was like top in the league. What, like 38%?
I think that's right.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I think that's right.
Like 38, 39, somewhere around there. I just went ahead and rounded up to 40, but I know those aren't the same thing, but they basically are,
Yeah.
But so, that's the biggest threat that they pose, in my opinion, is from the perimeter. And if we can do our best to be there on the catch and run them off the 3-point line and force them into taking contested 2s off the dribble, I think that's their whole offense.
I agree.
This isn't really a team that's looking to get downhill and stuff it down your throat. Okay? That's not who they are. They want to beat you with jumpers, and they want to beat you with finesse. And I think that with our just collective strength and physicality, we can take that away.
Yeah.
Number 2 kind of builds off of number 1. Because they take so many long-range jump shots, what comes from that? Long rebounds, right? A team that shoots this well from 3 cannot be afforded to have more than 1 attempt per offensive possession, if possible. I understand things happen, but the rebounding responsibility, though, traditionally it's all on the post players, it can't be that way.
No, that's what I was going to say. It's got to be a complete team effort.
Yeah, like everybody is going to have their responsibility.
Find a body and box them out.
Because we cannot afford to give them extra possessions, because when you give a 3-point shooting team extra possessions, I mean, it doesn't end well. It never ends well. So we have to take care of business in that regard. And if that leads to fewer runouts, it leads to fewer runouts. Let's go down the court. Let's set up a pick and roll, and let's ram it down the throat. Okay. that's how we're going to win. It's just being solid and being more consistent than they are.
Look, as far as the rebounding stuff goes, we've seen it before. I mean, there were a few times. I know the Mavs won in 5 games against the Timberwolves, but all of those games were close except for Game 5. And then the OKC series that went 6 games, and the Mavs weren't at full health because Luka that knee sprain was still bothering him. They didn't have Kleba for the entire series, which hindered their overall size with some of their lineup combinations. So, and I feel like the reason some of those games were so close is because they gave up second opportunities. Yep. Every game the Mavs have lost this postseason, or at least almost every game the Mavs have lost this postseason, you can go to the box score and check the offensive rebounds, the overall rebounds, and the points in the paint. And if the Mavs have won those categories, typically they've won the games.
That's how basketball works. I mean, that's literally basketball.
Yeah. So, I mean, it comes down to effort. I mean, like you said, the post players, that's, they're going to lean on Gafford and Lively to do a lot of the heavy lifting there. And obviously Luka's big and he's going to get his boards, but Kyrie's going to have to play bigger than he is. And the biggest thing, like I said, is finding a body. You can't just, when the shot goes up, you can't just be standing around looking up at the sky. Like, you got to find a body. Yeah, and then when you put your butt on somebody, then you can, box out and start looking for where the ball's at. But you can't let these guys get a free run at an offensive rebound. So that's the thing. That's what I hope, the Mavs show a lot of attention to detail on, is when a shot goes up, find Drew Holiday, find Derek White, find those guys, because they are very pesky. They find their way. They're hard nosed. They find a way to get those offensive rebounds. You got to nip that in the bud to give you your best chance to win. So
they're very good at it. And then my last point was, and I kind of talked about it earlier, is we need to be disciplined on offense. Even though Luka and Kyrie are, 2 of the best isolation players ever, I would like to see us do something more efficient than iso ball. And I really think that the Celtics would have a tremendous issue in guarding us in the pick and roll, because if Minnesota had issues with us, you better believe they're going to have issues. And also, if you look at a lot of their pick and roll coverage, a lot of it is drop coverage, which is what Rudy Gobert liked to do. The same Rudy Gobert that we just torched. So if they sink back like that, we also have 2 of the best mid-range jump shooters in the league. So they're not going to be able to do that. So it's in our best interest to, at the very least, run a pick and roll.
Yeah.
Every possession, something, and towards the middle of the floor, so we don't get double teamed.
Yeah.
Look, it's that happening.
It's very interesting too, because I was listening to a little bit of the Mind the Game. Is it Mind the Game podcast that LeBron and JJ Redick do together, and JJ asked LeBron, like, what would you guess is the best and worst ways to defend Luka? And he guessed them all correctly, of course, because LeBron's a basketball genius. But he basically, if you can't guard him one-on-one, that's not going to happen, especially off of pick and rolls. Like, he is just insanely efficient when you do that. If you drop on him, guess what? He's still efficient, because then if the defender fights over it, he has him pinned on his hip and he controls all the way to the rim, and he keeps the center in limbo that way. Mm-hmm. And if they do a complete switch, well, guess what? Now he's got Kristaps Porzingis or Al Horford on him. So, that's not how you want to do it. But surprisingly, when I was listening to that pod, JJ Redick had the numbers for it, but surprisingly, blitzing Luka is the way to go, because his points per the Mavs points per possession against blitzing, I think he said in the playoffs was like 0.67, which is awful.
So
But I will say this, and then I'll turn it over to you to give your thoughts on it too. But I feel like a lot of those blitzing moments that have turned into turnovers happened when Luka's knee was bothering him the most in that Clippers and OKC series. I don't think we saw those issues in the Minnesota Timberwolves series. So that's what I'll say. I think Luka will be a lot better against the blitz in this particular series because one, he's healthier, and two, the stakes are as high as they've ever been, and he has that clutch gene.
I agree with you about Luka's injury. And I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus right here, but I wonder for how many of those possessions Daniel Gafford was out there. We all know, and I hate to say that because I love Daniel Gafford.
He's great.
I think he does an exceptional job.
He's awesome.
He needs to learn how to play off 2 freaking feet, okay? Because whenever he does get blitzed, his immediate look is to the middle of the floor because that's generally what's open is the middle of the floor. And it's the post player's job or the screen setter's job, whatever, the screener's job. Whoever just set the screen, it's their job to float in that little gap right there and make themselves available, which he does. The issue happens is whenever he catches it, his feet get going and he forgets to dribble or pass.
Which Lively is very, very good at already at age 20.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, that's actually like whenever we convert on blitzes, the most is whenever Lively is in the game. That's whenever they stop blitzing us. If you've noticed that.
Yeah.
That's whenever they go back to drop coverage because that's like, turtle in the shell.
Because he makes the right decision. There's a threat either way you go with Lively because he's either going to pass it out to the perimeter to somebody that's wide open, or he's shown that he has the ability to go all the way to the rim. He's even shown this postseason he has a Euro step in his game.
Yeah. But the key is he catches in triple threat. He catches and goes on 2 feet first, gets himself under control, and makes the decision.
Yeah.
Gafford, whenever he catches, he's already moving.
Yeah.
He's already moving. And it doesn't give him enough time to make a decision. And so we have a brain fart.
He's getting ahead of himself is what he's doing.
And yes, and then it either ends up with a travel or some other various turnover. But I would be very curious to see on how many of those negative plays it was Gafford that was catching the ball in that spot.
And it presents an interesting situation going into next season, which obviously we're not going to get into that because we're talking about the here and now in the finals. But I do think going forward, like Lively's going to be the starting center for the Mavs. I think, at least going into next season. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they want to stick with what got them here, especially if they finish this off and win the title. But at some point in the near future, I think Lively's definitely going to be the full-time starter because his numbers are just too good with Luka and Kyrie. And even without those guys, when he's on the floor, he is just a plus-minus darling. And he does all the little things. He does all the dirty work. And Gafford is very good too. But, I do think Lively's going to be the main starter in the very near future. So we'll see how it goes. I'm very excited for all of them. I think they've worked harder than any of us can ever imagine to get to this point. They are at the pinnacle of their profession, which is what we all strive to do. So it's great. It's great. They're here. They're in the finals. They have a chance to do something really special, and I am super excited to get this thing started. And for those of you who come in here and listen to us ramble every single week and multiple times a week, especially throughout the playoffs, we appreciate y'all. We want y'all to continue to support the pod by rating, and subscribing on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We just recently crossed that 25K mark, so that's amazing. Love all of y'all for helping us reach that. And we're going to continue to bring you guys extensive coverage of the NBA Finals, both on DallasBasketball.com and Mavs Step Back Podcast. And, again, I'm flying my behind up to Boston Saturday, and I'm going to take in Game 2. I'm going to try to be as composed as possible while taking in Game 2. And then after the recap, when I get back to my hotel, we're going to come back on here again, and we're going to recap game 2. But before we get to that point, we have a game 1 to recap tomorrow night. So we're going to be right back on here. Again, I appreciate everybody who comes in and listens to us ramble, and we can't thank you enough for helping this podcast continue to grow the way it has. So appreciate it, guys. That's going to do it for this game 1 preview, and we will see you after game 1 and talk about some of the things that we predicted correctly. We'll see you next time. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks, guys.